Hello and welcome back to another episode of Gaming the System, the podcast where three intersectional feminists examine gaming and games through a feminist lens. I'm your host for today. I'm Jem and I'm here with my friends Alex and Matt. So before we get started, if you want to support us, you can subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/gaming the system for some exclusive content, or you can send us a one-off donation via PayPal to our email address, wearegamingthesystem@gmail.com. Today we are talking about gaming addiction, and also primarily about the responsibilities of games companies to gamers and their mental health, really, I suppose, is the broader topic today. So before we kick off with that, I just wanted to see how you guys are getting on with your gaming and what has been going on in your gaming worlds over the last few weeks.
Well, I've decided to jump back onto Assassin's Creed Syndicate, just because I just really love the music of because it's by Austin Wintory, who's one of my favourite game composers, and I just felt like going back into Victorian London and messing about. And then I realised, of course, that my saves for it are probably somewhere in the cloud as part of PS Plus or on my PS4, and so I had to restart the game from scratch because it's on my PS5. But I don't mind doing that, so I'm just kind of reworking my way through the story and just enjoying. I can't remember how old it is now. I think it came out in 2015. It's quite surprising how quickly time flies. But it's one of my favourite Assassin's Creed games. It's got a slightly more linear style compared to the more recent entries, where you could still sort of play around in the main missions with how you carried out the assassinations, and there were some sort of scripted ones where you could get extra cutscenes for doing it a certain way or fulfilling certain objectives, which is really fun. And like there were ones with the Tower of London where you could go and steal a yeoman's key and things like that. And it's just really cool. I just really like the world that they built for Victorian London. So been very much enjoying that. Yeah.
Awesome. What about you, Matt?
Yeah, so I've just finished the Talos Principle 2, and it's a bloody masterpiece. Absolutely. And it was only £25, and it's a £50 like quality of content and amount of content sort of game. So I can't recommend that enough for puzzle people. And it's all brutalist architecture covered with just verdant nature, and that's just one of my favourite art styles. And then alongside that, I was playing the second Witcher game, which I've been trying to play forever, but I finally got a laptop that's capable of doing it. And they're just so good. Just CD Projekt Red are really good at what they do. And it was nice to look back and go, oh yeah, they've always been good at this. And so now I'm starting The Witcher 3 again. And so, yeah, fun stuff.
Awesome. Well, I have really major news. I finished Baldur's Gate. Finally, Baldur's Gate 3.
Congrats.
Done. I started in August last year. So it's what? 6, 7 months, 8 months. Anyway, long time, ages. I did have some breaks in the middle, but I think I've clocked up well over 200 hours on it. It's a bit crazy. I was really thorough, and I talked to everyone, looked in every single box. So, I think I've basically explored a lot of the game, but I know that I haven't done all of it. I know there's bits that I missed. There's a whole quest. There's at least 2 big quests that I didn't do. So I gave myself a couple of days, and I let my husband finished playing his solo playthrough, and then last night we kicked off again, but this time we're playing origin characters. So I went for will because I didn't use will very much in my game. My party mostly consisted of me. I was a moon druid, and then Shadowheart, Gale, and Astarion. So I didn't really play a lot of will, and so I was intrigued to see the game from his perspective. And also he does a sort of warlocky magic, so I thought that might be quite interesting. And Daniel is going with Gale, because he didn't have Gale in his party. So yeah, it's been quite interesting. We literally just started and died almost instantly in the first fight because we've gone up a level of difficulty. But we've gone for tactician. Oh, I want to say taciturn. Tactician. Yeah, and we've gone for that, which is supposedly like a little bit bit harder. But it seemed to be quite a lot harder. But, I think it's difficult because when you're used to running around with like 100 plus health and suddenly you're running around with 10, it's a whole different perspective. And I think because we're so gun-ho, you just run into it thinking like, oh yeah, it's going to be fine. and then you get killed by like, a little imp or something. So it's humbling. So yeah, but good. Right, so on to today's topic, which I suppose is not a million miles away from like my experience of with playing Baldur's Gate and just thinking about it when I'm not playing it and all of that. But the inspiration for today's topic was an article that came out on the 27th of March on PC Gamer, and it just popped up on my feed, I think, and it just piqued my interest, which the headline is, "You can't sue us for making games too entertaining, say major game developers in response to addiction lawsuits." And it goes on to explain that Microsoft, Rockstar, Epic, and other companies are being sued for using addictive psychological features in games. And we're not talking about mobile games or, solitaire or other little sort of like in-app purchase games and things like that we would normally think about. We're talking about things like Minecraft, Grand Theft Auto 5 and Fortnite. So the argument is that in the lawsuit that an Arkansas woman has launched is against Roblox, Fortnite, Call of Duty and Minecraft. And they allege that these games are using addictive psychological features and basically hooked her son when he was 12. He's now 21, into these games, which has led to him dropping out of school, spending $350 a month on games, and being diagnosed with depressive disorder and anxiety, withdrawal symptoms when he stops playing the games, like rage, anger, physical outbursts, etc., etc. And the mum said that she was completely unable to regulate her son's gaming because she couldn't deal with the resulting outbursts. So, all of this sounds a lot like addiction symptoms that we know from other substances and other experiences that people have in life. And we know that there's a lot relating to gambling addiction, and there are obviously similarities with gaming addiction and gambling addiction. And I'm just wondering, like, what do we think about this? What do we think about how these games might influence people in this way, and what do we think about the responsibility of the individual games companies, and to their responsibility, their duty of care to their customers, to the players. So this is what we're going to talk about today. It's quite a big topic. Obviously, none of us are experts in addiction or gaming addiction or gambling addiction or any of these issues, and we're certainly not experts in law, unless either of you have been secretly studying. So all of this is just from a lay person's perspective and from a gaming perspective, but this is a big topic, it's a big issue, and I think it fits right in with what we talk about a lot, about the responsibilities of gaming companies to society. So with all of that in mind, I want to ask you, do you actually believe in this idea of gaming addiction? Is it possible to get addicted to gaming?
I think it's possible to get addicted to... well, I had to look up, before I kind of grappled with that question in my head, I thought I should look up what addiction actually means. Because I wasn't 100% clear, so I had a search around and looked on the NHS website and actually on Mind, their mental health charity, their website for their information on it. And basically an addiction is something that is used to kind of either as an escape away from something else that is causing issues in your life, that you want to escape from, or as kind of a method to de-stress after going through a tough day, and it becomes habitual. And then when that habit becomes a problem to the extent that everything else around you is not getting looked after, you're not looking after yourself, you're not looking after other people, you're not functioning in a quote unquote normal way, and whatever it is that you're using to feel better is taken over your life, that's when it becomes an addiction. So really, you could argue that it could be anything, because, there's all sorts of different types of addictions. The obvious ones people think of are things like gambling and alcohol and drugs, but there's also sex and, any other type of, I guess, vices, I suppose you would say. But yeah, as an entertainment media, I guess gaming... There are elements of gambling in gaming. I think definitely in mobile gaming. I know that's not what the lawsuit covers, but that's definitely something that's involved within gaming. Gaming itself and games aren't inherently bad. They're not a dangerous thing. But I think when they are used in a way that creates this addictive, it's being used as an addictive substance, as it were, then obviously you need to examine what the root cause could be, because the games themselves aren't the things that are the problem. Is that making sense? I don't know if I've worked it out in my head right, but that's kind of what I take away from it. And I don't know if that's 100% answering the question, but that's the conclusion I've come to. Yeah.
So within the bounds of the definition that you've found, which is really helpful, I think, do you feel that addiction is possible? The gaming addiction can be a problem.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Alex. What about you, Matt?
So I'd like to deconstruct this lawsuit a little bit, because like I said, I'm not a lawyer or a doctor or anything, but I am a young man who has had severe experiences with mental illness. And everything that I read in this just reads that this child going into this young man is having a profoundly difficult time in his life. And my perspective on addiction is you're either doing something to feel good, so it's like party drugs like cocaine and gambling. You're doing it for the excitement, and then there are addictions where you're numbing pain, where sober life is so painful and terrifying that you can't bear the thought of existing in it. And so you turn to things like, say, heroin, for example, and alcoholism. They're things that numb your experience of the world. And so, on my perspective of what this looks like is this child is going through a very difficult time and doesn't have the tools to cope with it. And so he does the best he can, which is to immerse himself in games, because then the world isn't as scary. You can feel safer in that. And I identify 100% with that, the young man in this. And the way to break people out of addiction, which is why it's so difficult, is you need to make sober life better, or at least as good as what this addiction gives you. So this world of gaming gives safety and comfort and enjoyment, and why wouldn't you want to spend all your time in that world if the world itself... I don't know whether this is misogynist or not, or whether this is whatever. The mum sounds like a nightmare. And so I just looking so the lawsuit is wrong. It's just there's no leg to stand on it in my opinion. In this, it feels like it's going in front of the Supreme Court. So whoever this mother is must have access to significant resources in order to get a case all the way to the Supreme Court. To have $350 to be spent on, because you can cut off a child when someone's 12 and goes, "Oh, I spent £350 on the credit card." You go, "Jesus Christ," and then you take the credit card away, and then that's it. And then saying, "I can't deal with my child's outbursts," that's just not an acceptable conclusion for a parent to take. The child is your responsibility, and it's your responsibility to raise them and to tell them no. And so it feels like this child is going through and has gone through a very difficult period, continues to do so. The mother is unequipped to deal with it, and instead of working out how to deal with it, she is turned to this great big broad stroke where what this young man needs is far more subtle and sophisticated than that. And this is just, I couldn't think of anything worse than your mother going to the world and going, "My son's fucked up and it's not my fault. He's a mess. He's lazy and skinny and ill and addicted to games, and it's not my fault." I want the world to see it, and you just need... This is bad. This is bad for everyone, and it's wrong.
One thing that also struck me, sorry, Jem, when I was reading the article, I don't think there was any mention of a father or a father figure, and I think that might also, I don't want to be an armchair psychologist here, but you wonder if that maybe if there was a lack of a male role model to help talk through things like any kind of mental health issues that he could have been going through or is going through, having that lack of a male role model might also be contributing to the issues that are happening. And I don't, again, I agree with Matt. I don't think the mother's handling it very well at all. But yeah.
And we just if we had the slightest glimpse of this life, it could be something happened to this young man when he was 12. Something bad happened to him, and that he might have been molested by someone. Happens all the time. And then he might have been too scared to tell parents, worried might tell parents. Children don't tell their parents things for a number of reasons. They might be an intensely religious family, and he might be gay, and the only way for him to he can't people burying themselves in the closet like that is profoundly bad for their health, and the family the parents might have gotten divorced when they were 12, and that might have affected him terribly. Just all these things, but this lawsuit is just, it's completely wrong. It completely misses the point, and yeah, it just doesn't do anyone any good, really. Apart from making, it's when it comes to the question of gaming addiction, whether it's possible, is one of those things where it people who think that can look at this and go, oh, look, our fears are valid. My child spends too much in gaming, and it's not because I don't give them boundaries or I don't understand them. It's too easy to use things like this, especially with children, as a scapegoat for parents who know that they're not giving their child what they need. But then this comes around to, I've been wanting to talk to you both about this because thinking about parenthood recently, and parenting is, I think this will be a topic for another time, but how what the role of parent has evolved into now that you can't beat your children. If a child is misbehaving, you can't beat them until they behave. And if your child has learning difficulties, you can't just say, oh, well, you'll just work in a mine. You go, no, I want your life to be the best it can. And so the nature of parenting is changing. But whatever this is, it's just bad for everyone.
So just so we know where we're starting from, do you think, Matt, that there is, I completely take on board everything that you've said about this particular case, but do you think that the idea of gaming, of being addicted to gaming is possible, or do you think that it doesn't happen, or it's very unlikely?
I don't think it's possible. I think it can be overdone, but it can be managed. It's a thing that can be managed. It's not like a chemical addiction. Because if you try and stop, you want to deal with the reason why you're gaming so much. If you're gaming so much because you're loving it and you're having a great time and it's very fulfilling, there's no problem. You can game like as much as you want. If you're doing it to hide from things, then sometimes it's a crutch that keeps you up so that you can manage enough to support yourself. Because what my psychiatrists have told me, which I think is very wise, is that it's the treatment for anything is time, talk, and tablets. And so you need to find out what tablets you need. You need to find someone to talk about the truth of your life and what you're experiencing. That has nothing to do with your parents or your family. That's really important. It needs to be someone in a neutral place. And then you just pass time until things get better. And gaming is the perfect way to pass time. And so the answer to, can you game too much? Yes. But it depends on the reason for your gaming. And then it's a holistic thing. Gaming is part of a lifestyle. And if you're having problems, you need to look elsewhere. Gaming, I think, rarely causes problems unless you're spending too much money on something, but you can always not spend as much money. It is complex, but it's more of it's impossible to go into it without deconstructing all of society. And I don't think we've got time for that today.
Not today, but we are working our way through it all. I think it's really interesting, actually, because I think that to me, what's coming out from listening to both of your answers to that question is that the operative word is about problems. You know, when it becomes a problem, and lots of us use all sorts of things to get us through difficult times in our lives, or to get us through bigger mental health challenges and all of those things. And there is a focus on sort of, you shouldn't be doing that. And I have a sort of, I refuse to use the word should, or I try not to use the word should, because should is such a laden word with a whole bunch of stuff behind it. And I think whenever I think I should do that, I deliberately don't do it because on principle, because I think that's the only way that I can push back against this idea that, I should be doing this, or I should be doing that, or I shouldn't be doing this. So I think there is a lot of virtue signaling and a lot of ideas of how we should be living our lives that can be problematic, and tells people that when they do things that are different from society and different from maybe the majority of people, that is wrong. And I think that obviously one of the things that we talk a lot about here is that just being different isn't wrong. It's just different, and different people have different ways of living their lives. So I've certainly gained considerably more than the average person at times in my life. And I would not say that I had ever been addicted to gaming. But I do think that I have been reliant on gaming at times in my life, to the detriment of myself and my life. It's difficult to know how negative that could have been, because, as you say, Matt, we use these things as support structures, and if we didn't have those, where would we be? It's easy, isn't it, to look back and say, oh, well, I wasted all that time gaming. But if gaming actually saved your life, then, how much isn't that a fair exchange? I think that you can't, it's so easy to just be flippant about these things, or to try and oversimplify them. And I think that is absolutely a valid point. I do also think that I have experienced with my child these rages and anger and frustration when unable to access their games or their phone or other things that are to the point of obsession important at various points. And as a parent, it is extremely difficult to manage that. And I agree with you, Matt. I mean, parents are the only people that can really do that. And if not the parent, then people that the parent brings in to support them. But it can be really difficult to manage that when you have a child who is literally screaming as though the world has ended because you've taken away their access to a game, or because the game has crashed, or in one nightmarish 10 days because they've been banned from Roblox. Probably fairly, to be fair, but so there are times when it can be really, really challenging, and where as a parent or as a loved one looking at that person, you're sort of like, it's just a game, come on, go watch TV or go play another game, or all of these things.
My mum said that to me on occasion when I was younger, and it was like lighting a fuse box, that sentence. It's just a game. No, it's not. It was, yeah. There'd be a number of times Mum would say she would just completely, block my access to games if she knew I was getting too angry about something and too worked up, or I'd start swearing, and, that probably wasn't appropriate for my age at the time. I was probably still in primary school, which again, probably not okay. But it got to the point where I was so angry that I'd start swearing, and then Mum would be like, nope, you're coming off. And she would immediately shut it all down and and just remove me from the room and say it's just a game, and then I'd completely go off on one because I'd be so annoyed because you don't understand how important it is. But obviously now I look back and I'm like, oh, of course it's just a game. But you get so I can't think of the word, not engrossed, it's more than that. It is almost obsessive, isn't it? Where you get sort of sucked into it, and when it doesn't go your way, it can be very difficult to manage emotionally. But yeah, that I can definitely understand now, looking back from my mum's point of view, how difficult that might have been to manage as well. Yeah.
I mean, sorry, Matt, go.
Part of the parenting thing. So women are always brought up, your main goal in life is to have children. So you get married, you get pregnant, you have a child, you raise that child to 18, they go off to the world, blah, 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 blah. But it's infinitely unknown and random what you're going to get from a child. Because for one thing, you don't know whether you're actually going to physically be able to have a child. You might go, oh, I'm pregnant, and then you might have a miscarriage, and then all of a sudden, well, I wasn't ready for that. Or they could have any kind of disabilities or neurodiversity. You might be intensely religious, and they might be LGBT. Did you feel before you had your child that you were prepared for, not necessarily prepared, you had a full idea of what you would need to be able to do as a parent?
What, me?
Yeah, as the only one with child.
No. I mean, actually, I approached it very much like I'm only going to look at the next step, because if I thought about how am I going to parent a teenager, then I would never have had a child, because the idea was so daunting. And I certainly was. I mean, I had a really lovely pregnancy. I didn't have any big problems or anything, and I really enjoyed being pregnant. But I was extremely anxious about how I would parent, because it just did feel like such a big thing. And I remember when my daughter got to her first birthday and we had the first birthday party, and I remember feeling like actually this was a celebration for me because I had kept her alive for a whole year. And I still feel like that now, and I still sort of say to her like, yay me, I got you to 16. And obviously it's not just me, there are many other people involved in that process, but I mean, you can't go into being a parent thinking that even if it's your second or third or fourth child, because as you say, there are so many differences, and you don't know what your child is going to need. So yeah.
And occasionally you get I listen to tons of true crime stuff, and the amount of kids who are they're sociopaths. You're born a sociopath. You can't help that. And then there's this one guy who pretended he was going to college for 4 years, and then when it came, but he hadn't been. He'd just been taking the parents' money and just not doing anything. And then when it came time for him to graduate, he killed his parents because he couldn't bear the idea of them finally finding out that it was wrong. And apparently that's worryingly common. Kids pretending they go to college.
It is actually one of my fears, Matt. You're like hooking into one of my failures that, like I'm going to suddenly find out it's all a big con, and my lovely daughter is not so lovely. She's actually the devil. I don't know. I mean, I think that is the thing with parents.
We hope you enjoyed that episode of Gaming the System. If you want to support us, you can donate to us through our PayPal by sending it to wearegamingthesystem@gmail.com if you want to send us a one-off donation. If you want to donate to us monthly, you can subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/gamingthesystem. Until next time, bye-bye.